To plan a volleyball unit plan for all the teachers to use is already quite challenging. It's even more challenging when your HOD asks you to plan a unit plan that is also inclusive, because the students you have very wide range of abilities, and you also have many students with SEN. For me, right, if I want to plan a unit plan, then I will try to keep it simple for myself. I will focus on my belief, which is every student can learn and want to learn. But of course, a lot of teachers will say, no, a lot of my students don't want to learn. They don't want to learn, they're not motivated to learn. A lot of them want to sit out the PE lesson. Yeah, so that's why we need to look at the root of the problem. I believe that the root of the problem is a lot of the students have cognitive overload. For example, they felt very unsafe. They are always worried of making mistakes, their friends judging them, and then they have a lot of poor experiences in PE lesson. That's why they are not motivated to learn. So if cognitive overload is the root of the problem, right, then one way is to look at cognitive load theory. So I will look at the 3 cognitive load principles to plan my unit plan. The first cognitive load principle is we need to reduce extraneous load. So what is extraneous load? Extraneous load are things in their mind that is distracting, that is confusing the students, that is making the students not want to learn. So these are the things that we don't want. For example, negative thoughts, confusing rules, too many things to learn. So when I plan my unit plan, right, I will think of 3 considerations. The first one is the structure of the lesson must be as similar as possible throughout the whole unit. So for example, I'm a teacher who prefer to use game-based approach. So the structure of the lesson is usually I will start with a game, then a skill practice, then followed by another game. So this is one structure of the lesson. Then every lesson should be quite similar throughout the whole unit. Then the next thing I will look at is the playing area. Students can be overwhelmed by constant change of playing area. So that's why the playing area should be as similar as possible. So at the end of the unit plan, right, we want students to be able to play a 4v4 volleyball using a badminton court. So throughout the whole unit plan, I will try my best to design the playing area to be in the badminton court. For example, the first lesson, I'll ask them to play a 2v2 modified volleyball using half a badminton court. Yeah, then 2v2, 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 then later on 3v3, 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 then later on 4v4, 4v4. Yeah, even the rules, right, I will try not to put so many rules in one lesson. The most I will put is 1 rule. Even at the start of the module, right, the rules will be very simple for the student. I don't want the student to be confused by the rules, by so many rules in the game. So for example, make 2 passes before they toss the ball over, and that's it. And then after 2 games later, then I'll introduce another rule. For example, they must serve the ball, then catch the ball, then they make 2 passes within their partner, and then they toss the ball over. Then every lesson introduce 1 simple rule so that it will not overwhelm them. Then after I've considered the extraneous load already, right, then the next thing I'll look at is the intrinsic load. Intrinsic load is the things the students are going to learn. And one thing we need to take note is we need to simplify, we need to manage the intrinsic load. Yeah, it cannot be so complex for the student until it's so difficult for the student to understand, then they will give up very fast. So there are 3 ways to manage the intrinsic load. The first way is bite-sized instruction. So I will try not to put so many learning cues in one lesson. So for example, I will let the students to explore a volleyball set for 2 lessons first, then later on introduce 1 learning cue or maximum 2 learning cue in the 3rd lesson. Then after that, after 1 lesson, introduce another learning cue. Another way to manage intrinsic load is the use of analogy. For example, right, if I want to teach volleyball set, one way is to use the analogy of imagine that the ball is a fragile egg that will break very easily. So if the student look at the ball as a fragile egg, right, they might cushion the ball down and then they will not try to hit the ball so hard. Then if I want to teach volleyball dig, right, one analogy I can think of is imagine the body as the elevator. Then the 2 arms form the platform of the elevator. So if we want the ball to bounce higher from the platform of the elevator, right, what should you do? Yeah, the whole elevator must lift, right? So when the student think about that, right, they will imagine themselves, they will squat down and lift themselves out. Yeah, rather than swinging their arms out where the ball will fly all over the place. So I will try to put analogy in the unit plan for teachers to use. Of course, if we really cannot think of any analogy, it's okay. But the thing is, the learning cue must be very easy to understand. The third way to manage intrinsic load is the use of prior experience. So because like remember just now I said already, I'll let the student explore first. For example, the first two lessons, let them explore volleyball set. Then talk about one learning cues or one analogy. Yeah, so when the student have already experienced it, have already tried it before already, it's easier for them to understand. So it will be like experience, so letting student explore first, then analogy or one or two learning cues, then explore, learning cue, explore, learning cue, explore, learning cue. Yeah, so the unit plan is planned like that. So after we have reduced extraneous load and then we have managed the intrinsic load, right, we can look at the last cognitive load, that is the germane load. Germane load is the thing that we want as much as possible in the brain. So what is germane load? Germane load is the processing of the information. It is the active learning, it is the practice, it is the problem solving, inquiry-based learning, it is the everything that we want our student to be thinking. Yeah, so we want it as much as possible. We want the brain to be fully immersed in the activity, in the task at hand. So that's why we want as much as possible. So there are three ways to promote germane load. The first way is practice. Practice, practice, practice. The more they practice, the more they think about it. So that's why when I plan the unit plan, right, I will try to keep it as simple as possible. One learning cue, one lesson objective, and not so many things. And then even the lesson structure, also keep it as simple as possible. The routine is almost the same every day. Then when that happens, right, the teachers that use the unit plan will find it easier to achieve that 70% practice time. Then another way to enhance germane load is to have a goal, have a target for the lesson. Because when students have a target, right, and then when they have 70% practice time, right, they will tend to focus on the target more. But of course, you must understand that every student are different. They have different ability, they have different strengths and weaknesses. So that's why it'll be good to let the student choose the target. Normally, I will introduce 5 levels to the student. For example, lesson 1, I will introduce level 1. Level 1 is, for example, 2 passes within their teammate and toss the ball over. Then level 2 is they must be able to serve the ball, then to the opponent, and then the opponent will make 2 passes, and then before sending it over. Yeah, so that's level 2. Then level 3, maybe one of the touch cannot be a catch. So for example, students, they have achieved level 2 in the last lesson. So this lesson, right, they can decide whether they want to maintain level 2, but having less mistake, more consistent, or they want to try for level 3. Then the student will work towards that level. Then they will do everything they can, practice a lot to work towards that target. And then the third way to promote germane load is the use of questioning. Questioning helps the student to reflect about their practices. It will help them to focus on the target better. So every lesson, I will try to put in 1 question or maximum 2 questions. Then after the practice, after the game, then they will talk about it. Then after that, they'll see whether they can improve or not. Then of course, throughout the whole module, right, the question I choose should be very focused on what I want the student to achieve. For example, the start of the module, right, usually we just want the student to appreciate the game of volleyball. So the question asked should be things like, what can you do to make the game more enjoyable, make the game more playable? What rules can you modify so that it's easier to play? You can see more success, that kind of question. Then later on in the middle of the module, right, the question asked should be things like tactical kind of question or game concept kind of question. Then lastly, by about 7 or 8 lessons, the student will already know what is the skill that they really want to improve on. Because everyone is very different, right? Everyone have very different targets. So it will be good for the student to have the autonomy to decide what is the skill they want to learn. So that's why from lesson 9 to lesson 16, I will give the student the autonomy to decide what is the skill they want to practice, to achieve the target that they set for themselves. So this is, in a nutshell, how I will plan my volleyball unit plan that is inclusive.